In the studio with me right now, Dr. Oz, and you may have remembered him getting his start on the Oprah show, doing so many guest appearances. The demand was in, and now you have your own show. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Lonnie. I started doing the Oprah show without any real understanding about how television worked. So I would just show up on the set, I'd pull out the organs, we talk about it, I'd go home. Mm-hmm. That's why I was wearing my scrubs, because I didn't really actually thought about
I remember that.
what was going to happen. And then a couple of years ago, Oprah called me into her office. She said, what do you think about doing the show on a regular basis? I said, well, I'm already here all the time. She goes, no, I'm talking about your own show. And so she was kind enough to sponsor it and make it happen. And so we've been having a good, fun time.
So what were you thinking in your head when she told you that?
I had never crossed my mind to do it. So it was a bizarre moment when you sort of sit there and realize that someone else has bigger aspirations for you than you do.
Right.
And it's sort of cool, but you got to process it. My biggest concern was not being able to practice medicine. And I still operate. I mean, I operate on Thursdays.
Okay.
So I didn't want to give up the practice of medicine, which I spent my whole life learning how to do. But it was an interesting experience to understand how you actually make material accessible to folks. And I've been a teacher my whole life. I'm a professor at Columbia University. So I would always teach, but I didn't have a staff of 200 people around me helping make props, animations, helping support me with information. So now we have that on the show. We've got a whole medical unit. In fact, I'm bringing the whole show to Chicago for the Health Expo tomorrow at Millennium Park. And so from 9 to 5, you can see the whole inner workings.
Free.
It's all free. You can see how the sausage is made on the show, because I'm going to bring all the individual elements. And the biggest thing I'm going to do, which is what we try to do on the show, is to screen people, to tell people what they probably should know about their bodies but might not realize it. So we're going to start off with really simple stuff. Like I'm going to do a little test to see what your sugar is, your cholesterol is, and your blood pressure. Those simple tests can tell me a ton about how you're doing, and you need to know them. And if you don't know them, I want to assume they're not good. Everybody who's an adult in Chicago ought to know those. Listen, we are in the middle of the country, both geographically but also in our health, and the middle isn't good enough. So if we can understand where we are today and truly be able to map it out, then we can start to go into the healthy space, which is where you'll spend most of the day tomorrow, seeing all the different cool things we do to get people to understand a little bit more about their bodies, including kids, by the way. Elmo's coming.
Because that was what I was going to ask. At what age should you know your blood sugar levels? At what age should you start getting screened?
Age 20, without any question, for all about the testing we're talking about, is the last moment you should get tested. It doesn't hurt you to get tested earlier than that, but at least by age 20, you ought to know it all. The reason I focus on kids so much is because kids pick up their habits from their parents. Remember, kids aren't going to treat themselves the way you treat them. They're going to treat themselves the way you treat yourself. And if you don't take care of yourself, they're going to copy that. So I want the kids to come. I want them to play with the organs. We got a whole assistant of the day set up. We have an assistant of the day on the show because Oprah used to always be my assistant on her show. So I had to, get America to replace her. And so I'm always amazed at how talented people are just getting up there and touching the organs and describing them. So we're going to do that in one part of the tent at Millennium Park tomorrow. And then as you move through the tent, you'll be able to see your real age. And I have, by the way, all my experts from the show coming. So Dr. Roizen's going to be in the real age booth. He's going to be figuring out how old does your body think you are. I've got Art Smith and a bunch of other great chefs making 500-calorie meals that are affordable. My daughter's coming, Daphne.
Nice.
As are my wife, but my daughter's going to be talking about these inexpensive meals because something that she spends a lot of time doing for kids to understand. So we'll sort of walk you through what life could be like if we do it right. If we make it fun and enjoyable and playful, then hopefully you'll remember some of it and use it in your life.
First of all, it's great to get the kids involved at an early age because so many people get into adulthood and they're scared of going to the doctor. So if they embrace it at a young age and realize, I want to go see the doctor, that's incredible. But I want to know what factors go into figuring out what age your body thinks you are.
Well, there are a couple of key factors that age your body. So they're major drivers. Blood pressure is the number one cause of aging. I taped a show with Oprah yesterday where we spent a lot of time talking about that. Because if you don't know your blood pressure, you got this fire hydrant that's squirting off that delicate thin lining of the inside of your aorta, the big blood tubes that carry your blood. Major cause, especially in African Americans, is stroke. We have a 40-year-old athlete who came on the show talking about how she kept having weird headaches, which is a pretty typical sign of high blood pressure, getting ignored by people around her until she finally had a stroke. So waking up to the effect of blood pressure is the number one way you reduce your real age, which is how old your body thinks you are. Yeah, you also know what your sugar is, because another big ager. And then you want to know about your lifestyle. Do you smoke? Are you overweight? What's your waist size? How do you deal with stress in your life? Big issue, especially in the cities, because people don't feel like they control their destiny. So that stresses you out. And when you get stressed, you want to eat. Because our ancestors equate stress with famine, not having enough food. That was what stress was. So when you feel stressed out, you react as though you don't have enough food. You eat more things you don't even like. You turn on these little chemical receptors in your brain called cannabinoids. Sounds like cannabis, doesn't it? Same thing. When you smoke pot, it turns on those same receptors and you get the munchies. So when you feel stressed out, you'll get the exact same impact on your brain with regard to food as if you were smoking pot.
Didn't know that
Yeah.
one.
So we're going to walk people through all this stuff and with all the experts, break it up in ways that are accessible. You don't have to stay the whole day. You might want to. It's supposed to be beautiful weather, by the way. So, and if you go to Millennium Park, it's, where that big bean is. you can sort of hang out there, and all the tents around there are where the expo will be. So it's impossible not to find it, and it's going to be a festival.
Right. You can just make a day of it. Bring the entire family
Absolutely.
out.
And if someone can't get to the festival, can't get to the health expo, it's okay, because we've got screening available, DrOz.com site, and we'll send people to your neighborhood, get some people in the community together, and we'll just take a bunch of people. And by doing this slowly but surely, we'll get all of Chicagoland to understand where we live today, so we can make ourselves healthier for tomorrow.
And I had like 3 quick little medical questions that
Get
I
it
wanted
away.
to ask.
Are these about you?
Yes.
Good. I like that.
The first one is I like to keep my house really, really cold. I get that from my mother, 65 degrees all the time. And somebody said, oh, well, that's good. You probably never get a cold because germs can't really live in there. Is that true? Is that just like a myth?
That's not really true.
Okay.
Germs actually like the cold weather. The reason we have more flu viruses in the wintertime is because the cold virus can survive longer in cold weather. But the nice thing about colder weather is you have less bacteria growth.
Okay.
So it's a trade-off. Most humans want to live at around 68 to 72. That's sort of the happy place for most of us. If you're a few degrees here and there, it doesn't matter. If you insist that it be really hot, I worry about your thyroid.
Okay.
So you don't have a thyroid problem, obviously.
Okay, no. The other thing is, with the cold season and flu season coming upon us, one remedy that I heard recently that I had never heard before, putting Vicks Vapor Rub on your feet and putting socks on.
Well, I can see Vicks Vapor Rub being helpful, probably because it helps if you inhale it as well.
But on your feet?
Well, when you put it on your feet, you're going to inhale it, and you're going to absorb it through your skin. So it may have an effect of dilating up the arteries. I've never studied that, but I love remedies you put on your feet and then you put socks on, because while you're sleeping at night, you see the benefit. And if you're going to put something on your feet, you might as well put Butterbur or one of these little salves or ointments, especially on the heels. Take care of the dry skin down there. That works really well. But you got to wrap your feet with Saran wrap. Otherwise, it all leaks out into the sock. You want to keep it on your feet.
Okay, interesting. And the last thing is, I suffer with migraine headaches a lot. And I've been told from doctors, I've gone to neurologists, my regular medical practitioner, things like that, and they say, oh, it's mostly genetic or hereditary. I had my first one in kindergarten.
Oh, my goodness.
So any suggestions, because I've done my research personally, and they say it's a whole list of things that could trigger it.
Well, one thing for sure I do is check to see if you have a hole in your heart. Because people who have holes in their heart, they can be very small holes, but they'll shunt blood from the liver right into the brain. Normally, the blood has to go to the lungs first. When you have a hole in your heart, the blood can take a shortcut to the brain. And the chemicals coming out of the liver are very potent, and they dilate up. They open up the arteries of the brain too much, so you get these massive headaches, which we call migraines. So if you want to just check to make sure you don't have a hole with an echocardiogram of the heart, that's probably pretty wise. The other big issue with migraine sufferers is if you can stay on a program where you're really alert of what's going on in your head, as soon as you start to sense an inkling of a migraine, if you can immediately begin to treat it, that has dramatically reduced the sequelae, the length of time you have the problem. And I know that's hard to do a lot of times. And if that doesn't work, then some people have to be on chronic medications. But I always hate to put young people on chronic medications. Just check for the hole.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Tomorrow, Millennium Park, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Join Dr. Oz, the entire staff. His daughter's going to be there. Bring the kids out. Bring everybody out. Learn about the details that go on the show, which airs weekdays, 3 p.m. and again at 4 p.m.
On Fox. I love it here.
And the website?
DrOz.com. Spell it to doctor, DrOz.com. We got all the information there. So if you don't manage to make it, we'll come to you. But show up. You'll have a good time.